the last light before the silence. Night has fallen with an almost ceremonial stillness. Outside, the city lights flicker as if suspended between worlds, not fully here, not entirely there. And inside the room, a body prepares to shut down. But not in the way you might think. The eyelids grow heavy. The mind begins to slow. The body surrenders, little by little, to the gravity of the unseen. It's an ancient process, primitive, almost sacred. And no one teaches it, because every being is born already knowing how to sleep, as if, deep down, it remembers that this act, the simple closing of the eyes, is a glimpse of something far greater. When sleep approaches, it's not just the body that drifts off. There's a subtle moment, almost imperceptible, when the soul places its hand on the doorknob of an invisible doorway, a door that separates the here from the there. And then it steps through. Few notice this crossing. It happens in the space between the last conscious thought and the first deep breath. But in that pause, that space where time seems suspended, something begins. Something real. Something ancient. To scientists, it's simply the start of REM sleep. To scholars, it's the beginning of the body's restoration cycle. But to the ancients, to the initiates, it's the moment the soul leaves its capsule and retreats into the dark. But the dark is not empty, nor is it always silent. It is there, in the darkness of the physical world, that the light of the subtle realm begins to glow. Like a lighthouse emerging from a formless sea. Like a flame lit in the womb of consciousness. Sleep is a code, a key embedded in the very design of the human being. It's the reminder that you are not just this body. It's the necessary pause for the soul to breathe a different air and begin to remember who it is, away from the noise of matter. As the outer eyes close, others open within. And in this very moment, right now, as you listen, there are thousands, maybe millions of consciousnesses crossing over. Some return to their astral homes. Others visit places where time does not exist. Some rest in pure silence. And others have work to do. Because sleep is not just rest. It is a journey. It is when the body ceases that the spirit begins. And so, when someone falls asleep, they're actually waking up in another way. A new reality reveals itself. A reality where walls don't hold. Where feet don't touch the ground. Where eyes see what they never could while awake. The question, then, isn't what happens when you sleep? But rather, who are you while you sleep? And before that question even settles, something within you already knows. The answer won't be found on the surface. Because what comes next can only be understood with an awakened soul. And when the soul awakens, it crosses over. But crosses into what? And what exists on the other side of that crossing? The invisible portal behind the eyes. You don't feel the exact moment you cross over, because it makes no sound. There's no blinding light, no bells, no voices calling your name. But it happens. It always happens. That's when the physical world begins to dissolve, and another reality starts to take shape. Slowly, like mist turning into landscape. This is the precise moment the astral body detaches. Light, translucent, almost imperceptible. It rises from the sleeping body like someone waking up inside a dream. And then it floats. It glides out of matter, effortlessly, painlessly, as if it had always done this. The ancients called it unfolding. Mystics called it the soul's journey. Science avoids giving it a name. But you've been through it, even if you didn't know. You know that feeling of falling just before sleep? or that invisible jolt that snaps you awake. Sometimes, it's the body trying to pull back something that had already started to leave. What's curious is that this other body, this subtle form, looks like you, but it has no weight, no hunger, no sense of time. It's made of consciousness in motion, and once it crosses over, it finds what lies beyond waking life. Realms where time slips through your fingers like sand. Places where a thought is enough to arrive. Where space bends, and forms obey the vibration of your inner state. In this plane, many wander without remembering. They visit cities of light, receive encrypted messages, dive into oceans of wisdom that, upon waking, slip away like water through open hands. Imagine a place where time doesn't exist, where every thought shapes the landscape, where emotions color the skies, where sounds aren't heard with the ears, but felt in the chest. That's the kind of reality you access while the body sleeps. And it isn't a fixed place. It changes. As you change, when your vibration is high, you rise into more subtle realms. Peaceful, luminous, almost like returning to the source. But when fear, anger, or the weight of matter take over, the soul drags through dense zones, confusing, filled with strange symbols, sometimes even shadowy. The truth is, every night is a different journey, and each journey reveals more about who you truly are. But why don't we remember? Because upon waking, the portal shuts too quickly. It's like surfacing from underwater and forgetting what you saw beneath. And yet, something always stays. A sensation, a color, a scent that doesn't exist, a name you swear you heard but can't quite recall. These traces are like breadcrumbs left by the soul. Little clues that what you saw was real. And sometimes, the astral body goes so far, so deep, that upon returning, it takes time to fit back into the physical body. That's why some people wake up dizzy, with the feeling of not being fully here. Because they're not. The crossing between worlds is not just a spiritual mystery. It's a reminder that you don't belong to this world alone. You are a traveler. You are a bridge. You are the one who walks between dimensions, even when you think you're only sleeping. But if we journey every night, why do we forget almost everything? And who benefits from that forgetting? The theater of the mind and its hidden codes. Inside, reality unfolds in scenes, but not like those of waking life. It's a theater where you are the actor, the set, and the script itself. Dreams, but not just any kind of dream. The soul uses images because the spirit understands symbols. The language of the higher mind isn't made of words. It's made of sensations, metaphors, colors, and archetypes. Each dream is a riddle, a map folded into layers. At first glance, they seem like disconnected fragments. A train without tracks, a house full of doors, a mirror that doesn't reflect, a child who doesn't speak, a hug that never ends. But if you look closely, if you close your eyes within the dream itself, something reveals itself. Each element carries a code, an emotional password, a part of you asking to be seen. That's why certain dreams linger, even after you wake, even after days. They insist. They stick to your chest, not as memory, but as a question. Have you ever dreamed of returning to a place you've never been? Heard voices that weren't yours, but spoke intimate truths? Felt an inexplicable longing upon waking? That's not imagination. It's symbolic memory. It's the backstage of your consciousness in motion. Because in this theater of the mind, every character represents a force. Every scene reflects something greater. The monster chasing you might be the fear you pretend not to have. The endless maze might be the doubt you avoid facing. The figure that saves you might be a future version of yourself trying to reach back. Most people wake up and dismiss it. They say, it was just a dream. But the truth is hidden in the background of that absurd storyline. There was an answer. There was a key. There was a piece of your soul screaming, even if veiled. What if every dream were an encrypted message? What if every symbol served a precise function, like the gears of an ancient clock? What if everything you needed to know had already been shown, just in a way your rational mind can't decode? That's why dreams are strange. That's why they seem chaotic. Because they are deciphered by the heart, not by logic. They are like songs sung in another language. You may not understand every word, but you feel what they're saying. That's what a dream is. An echo of the soul trying to reach your forgotten self. And deep down, you know something in it makes sense, even if you can't explain it. What if that forgetting isn't a flaw? What if it's a program? Who stands behind the fog that erases everything at dawn? The technology of forgetting. You wake up, but not completely. You open your eyes, feel the weight of your body on the bed, hear the distant hum of the world returning, but something slips away. A word, a name, a place. It felt so real, so vivid. And now, nothing. Just emptiness slipping through the fingers of your mind. Like trying to remember a scent that lasted half a second. This awakening amnesia feels natural. Most people accept it. It's normal to forget dreams, they say. But what if it's not? What if the forgetting is induced? The ancients knew. They spoke of veils, of layers between worlds, of portals that remain open only while the soul is free. But they also warned, someone or something doesn't want you to remember. There is an invisible technology, not made of metal, not of machines, but of frequency. It operates precisely in the space between the dream world and the waking world. In that exact instant when the soul returns to the physical body. That's when the fog settles in, like a silent eraser, like a veil gently pulled, but with a clear intention. This fog isn't in the body. It's in the field, in the energetic field around the mind. An interference implanted ages ago to prevent consciousness from recalling its nightly journey. For what? Because what you see when you sleep sets you free. Free from beliefs. Free from fear. Free from illusion. The matrix, this collective illusion we call reality, depends on your forgetting. It depends on you waking up each day believing that everything that exists is here. In matter. In routine. On the surface. If you clearly remembered what you saw, what you felt, what you were during sleep, the game would change. You'd start to question. To ask different questions. To search for the invisible with open eyes. This fog of forgetting is like a spiritual firewall, programmed to cut the bridge between the soul and the conscious mind. But it isn't invincible. Some make it through. Others wake up with fragments, unexplainable sensations, wordless memories, and those who train slowly begin to hack the system. With meditation, with immediate journaling upon waking, with silence and awareness. Because what's at stake isn't just remembering dreams. It's remembering yourself. There are also forces, not physical, invested in your disconnection. Forms that feed on human unconsciousness. Entities that only exist because you forget who you are. They're not movie monsters. They are distractions. They are hurry. They are anxieties in disguise. And all of them work to ensure that as you wake, you get swept away in the flow. Into your phone, into your coffee, into the clock, without remembering what you saw, what you were. But what if, tomorrow as you open your eyes, you resisted? What if you tried to pull on a thread? Any thread, a scent, a color, a word? Because sometimes all the soul needs is a single thread to begin unraveling the web of forgetting. And when you do remember, what else might be revealed? What does the soul see when no one is looking? The night council of the soul. While the body rests, the soul gathers, not with other people, but with versions of itself, with fragments that don't fit into waking life, with guides who do not speak in words, with faces that don't exist, but carry a wisdom you recognize without needing to understand. It is there, in that nameless space, where what many call the night council takes place. It's not a place with walls. There are no chairs, no ceiling lights. It's more like an ethereal space where everything hums in soft tones. An invisible hall made of silence and presence. Some see it as a golden chamber, others as a dense and humid forest. Still others see nothing at all, they just know they're there. It is in this space that the soul is called to meet with what lies beyond personality. The higher self, the core, the spark. Here the ego sleeps. There are no masks, no excuses, only truth. Each night, a meeting. Some are brief, others intense. There, you review decisions, examine mistakes, observe patterns. You feel the weight of your actions, but without judgment, only awareness. It's like watching a movie of your own life, but feeling in its purest form the impact your actions had on others. No filters, no defense. On certain nights, you receive guidance, like arrows of light pointing toward paths not yet walked. Sometimes you're given warnings, subtle forecasts, signs that will later appear as coincidences once you're awake. And there are special nights, nights when you sign soul contracts, decide on deep changes, adjust courses that the soul asks for, but the ego isn't yet brave enough to follow. You may not remember, but you've had these conversations. You've promised to take better care of yourself. You've asked for forgiveness before being able to say it out loud. You've chosen to let someone go, or decided to return to something your soul loves. And when you wake up with that strange feeling, as if something has changed, it's because it truly has. Inside, this dimension where the council meets isn't on another planet. It vibrates around you all the time, but it's only accessible when you sleep or when you become deeply silent. The guides there don't speak in sentences. They speak through sensations, through images, through presence. And even if you don't understand in the moment, the soul understands. There are records, etheric memories, stored like seeds, and at some point in life, they bloom as intuition. Something told me not to go. I felt that was the right path. I don't know why, but I just knew. That's it. Those are memories of the council, traces of encounters with something more you than your own name. And when a soul refuses to listen, it returns to the same place, night after night, receives the same signs, the same warnings, until it finally hears. But there are also souls that come back different. Have you noticed that? People who wake up and seem lighter, more certain, more connected. They were there. They listened. And they accepted. They woke with a stirred heart, as if they brought something sacred back, even without remembering. Because deep down, it's not about remembering with the mind, but remembering with life. And sometimes in those night encounters, someone who has already passed is waiting for you. The encounter with those who have departed. There are nights when time stops, and the impossible happens. You're there in a place you can't quite name, maybe an old house, or a square that reminds you of your childhood, or a room lit by a kind of light that doesn't come from the sun. And suddenly, they appear. That person, that presence, someone who has already passed, but for some reason is there, standing, with the same eyes, the same way of smiling, the same energy you swore you'd never feel again. And in that instant, the whole world disappears. The setting doesn't matter. How it happens doesn't matter. All that matters is that it is happening. You want to ask 1,000 things. You want to understand how. You want to be sure it's real. But you don't need to, because everything in that moment is true. Truer than any memory. More real than any photo tucked away. It's as if your heart recognizes what your eyes still doubt. There is no longing there. There is presence. You touch. You listen. You feel. And even without saying a word, everything is said. A hug that dissolves old pain. A look that answers questions that never had answers. A silence full of meaning, because the soul understands what the mind cannot reach. In encounters like these, there is no time, no clocks, no yesterday, no tomorrow. Only a stretched out now where two worlds meet. Some return from dreams like this in tears. Others wake with a lump in their throat. Still others with an inexplicable peace. Because in those encounters, something is healed. Sometimes it's a goodbye that never happened. Sometimes it's a forgiveness left unspoken. And sometimes it's simply an "I'm still with you." Have you ever dreamed of someone who passed away? Had that deep feeling that it was more than a dream? That it was real? That's because it was. These visits aren't hallucinations. They are permitted encounters. Moments of reconnection between souls still vibrating in harmony despite the distance between realms. There are people who come back from these experiences with decisions made. As if a silent conversation had changed everything. As if the other's presence had lit the way. And some say that in these encounters, something is given. A symbol, a key, a gesture, a spiritual gift that will make sense later, when the time is right. It's important to know, not every dead person is absent. Not every death is an end, and not every goodbye is forever. When the soul sleeps, it travels to where love still pulses. And love that, yes, crosses dimensions. So don't be surprised if you dream of someone who passed years ago. If you hear their voice again, clear as day. If you wake with their scent in the air, even if no one else can smell it. These are echoes, living memories, encounters your soul scheduled while you were asleep. But not all visits are sweet. Not all encounters are of light. Sometimes, sleep becomes a battlefield. The silent war during sleep. Not every night is gentle. Not every dream is a message. And not every silence is peace. There are moments when the soul does not rest. It fights, even if you don't know it. Even if you wake up thinking you slept. There are days when you wake up tired, exhausted, as if you'd carried the weight of the world on your back. As if you'd been running without moving. And in a way, you ran. You fought. During sleep, the soul doesn't only meet. It also defends itself. Because there are forces that do not sleep. And shadows that lurk as your eyes close. These shadows have no defined shape. Sometimes, they are old thoughts given form. Built-up sorrows that became entities. Guilt, fear, self-judgment. Yes, forgotten emotions can take on a life of their own. In the subtle realm, everything you feel can take shape, and what you hide while awake appears at night. But there are also external interferences, frequencies that do not belong to you, yet manage to infiltrate. Collective thought forms, creations of the unbalanced human mind, fragments of the matrix trying to keep your vibration anchored in fear. During sleep, you are more open, more sensitive, more accessible, and that's why some souls become battlefields. Your dreams turn into confusing labyrinths, chaotic scenes, feelings of being chased, faceless figures, presences that merely watch and drain. Have you ever woken up sweating even though it wasn't hot? Felt like you screamed in a dream, but no one heard? Woken with your heart racing for no apparent reason? These are traces, signs of battles fought in the unseen. Sometimes you're fighting for yourself, other times for someone you love. Because the soul, when bound by deep ties, moves out of love, even when it's not called. And there are nights when you're led to dense places, not as punishment, but as mission, to cleanse, to rescue parts of yourself that remain trapped, to free fragments lost in old traumas. That's why some dreams confront you, challenge you, place you face to face with your own monsters. They don't want to destroy you. They want to be seen. They want to be dissolved by the light of awareness. And when you face them, even just in the subtle realm, something shifts in the physical. A fear disappears. A habit breaks. An old pain finally ends. But there are battles that leave marks. Energetically, you might wake up with aches in your body, as if you'd been struck. Emotionally, with sadness, anxiety, or even anger. That's why protecting yourself before sleep isn't superstition. It's wisdom. Prayers, mantras, silence, intention. They're not empty rituals. They're vibrational shields. The soul that prepares for the night travels armored, and the one that forgets may lose itself in foreign fields. The silent war of sleep is real, but it's not permanent. It's not punishment. It's a process. It reveals where there are still openings, where awareness still needs to reach. And above all, it shows your strength, because despite it all, you wake up. Each day, whole or in pieces, but you wake. And that already says a lot about who you are. But come morning, all of it must be left behind. And it's in that moment that the soul returns to the body. But does it truly return completely? The body as a capsule of return. The sky is already beginning to brighten outside. The bird's song starts to stitch the silence back together. And the body, until now surrendered to the stillness of sleep, begins to show its first signs of life. A deep breath, an unconscious twitch of the legs, the heavy blink of the eyes. But before all that, long before, something happens within. The soul returns. It's a subtle process, almost technical, but profoundly sacred, because the body, though fragile, is a capsule, a temple, a bridge between worlds. And for the soul to inhabit this structure made of flesh, bones, and memories once again, it must lower its frequency, slow its vibration, recalibrate itself to density. It's like trying to store a star inside a bottle, like fitting the ocean into a seashell. That's why the return isn't always smooth. There are days when you wake up with the sense that something was left behind, as if you didn't come back entirely. And maybe you didn't. Sometimes, fragments of consciousness are still wandering. They take longer to align with the physical body. Other times, parts of you chose not to return, because they found something out there that still needs to be understood. That's why there are mornings when you wake up and don't recognize yourself, as if you're out of place, unanchored from your own name. And there are moments when the soul comes rushing back, like someone fleeing from something, and the body feels it. You wake with a racing heart, with sudden heat, with cold sweat. It's as if the spirit had been pulled back too quickly, almost violently. And on those days, the morning feels strange. You can't focus. You feel like you're floating or disconnected. But all of this is part of the realignment, the fine-tuning between dimensions. Because the body, despite being physical, must relearn how to receive the soul night after night. And every return is different, because every journey was different. Have you ever noticed how some awakenings feel light? You open your eyes and feel a deep peace, as if you'd come back from a place where you were held, healed, remembered. Others are foggy. You drag yourself through the morning, as if missing something you can't name, because the body holds more than muscle memory. It holds the soul's impressions. And even when the mind forgets, the body remembers. That's why some people wake up wanting to change their lives, for no clear reason. Others with answers to questions they didn't even know they'd asked. And some with a sadness that doesn't belong to this world. Maybe the place they came from is still echoing inside them. Maybe the soul touched truths the body can't translate. But no matter how it returns, every morning comes in through the breath, descends down the spine, reclaims the chest, and anchors itself in the eyes. And in that sacred, silent moment, the world begins again. But sometimes, before returning, the soul leaves clues, codes, messages hidden in dreams that repeat themselves. And if you can decipher them, you might discover far more than you imagine. The hidden password in repeated dreams. They come back. They always come back. The same hallway, the same old school, the same endless road, the same blurred face. And you wake up once again with the same feeling. I've dreamed this before. These dreams, they insist. They're not random. They're not coincidence. They're messages with a reminder. Letters your soul keeps sending until someone finally reads them. Repeated dreams are not system errors. They are passwords, codes, doors that haven't been opened. They appear when something is unfinished, a cycle that hasn't closed, a trauma still vibrating, a pact unbroken, or a calling you haven't yet heard. Each repetition carries a purpose, and the more you ignore it, the more it returns. But they don't come to torment you. They come to remind you. It's the soul saying, look again. You haven't seen everything yet. There's something here you need to understand. And you try to decode it, try to recall the details. But everything feels confusing, fragmented, too symbolic. And that's the key. Repeated dreams speak the language of the soul, the language of symbols. The labyrinth might be your own life. The staircase that never ends might be the weight you carry without noticing. The figure watching you from afar might be a version of yourself, older, more wounded, waiting to be embraced. Sometimes it's a place, a city you've never seen, but that feels strangely familiar. And then, years later, you find out that place exists, or that the name you heard in the dream has an ancient meaning, or that the person who appeared died before you were even born. None of this is chance. None of this is trivial. Repeated dreams are echoes of the soul's memories. From other lives, from other realms, from choices made before you were born. They are like notes scribbled in the margins of your spiritual contract. Those clauses you forgot to read, but that still hold. Have you ever had that dream where you try to run, but can't move? Where you scream, but no one hears? Where you need to save someone, but you fail? Maybe you're reliving a mistake. Maybe you're rehearsing a liberation. Maybe you're being prepared for a reunion. Whatever the case, pay attention. Write it down. Look for patterns. Repeat the symbols in your mind. Close your eyes and return to the scene. Sometimes, simply recognizing the cycle is enough to break it. Sometimes, simply embracing what repeats is enough to free yourself from it. And when the repeated dream finally disappears, you know something has been integrated, that a part of you, once forgotten, has been heard. But some dreams don't vanish. They evolve. They shift. They reveal more details each night. Those are portals. They don't want to be ended. They want to be crossed. Because there are places, people, and answers waiting on the other side. And it all begins with a simple act of courage. Paying attention, looking with the eyes of the soul, listening with an awakened heart, feeling with unbound intuition. Repeated dreams are patient teachers. They don't scream, but they won't leave. They wait for you at the threshold, watching, waiting for you to finally say, "I'm ready." And when you cross, when you understand, when you embrace, then reality changes. Because now you wake up different. But is that really waking up? The return to the labyrinth of wakefulness. You open your eyes. The light enters slowly. The white ceiling, the bedsheet, the distant sound of a city awakening. Everything seems normal. But something inside you knows. You are not the same person who fell asleep. Maybe you can't explain it. Maybe you can't put it into words. But you feel it, deep in your chest. As if you left something behind, or brought something back. Waking up has never been just a biological act. It is a rite, a reintegration, a return to illusion. Because the world you call real, this world full of appointments, screens, voices, traffic, and bills, is in truth a grand theater. Wakefulness, this state where we call things normal, is a carefully crafted labyrinth, full of distractions, of noise, of invisible walls that seem harmless, but keep you inside. And every day, you wake up inside it. And every day, you forget there's something beyond it. But when you begin to remember, when you carry fragments of the night on your skin, in your gaze, in your intuition, the labyrinth begins to crack. You realize that time isn't so linear, that encounters aren't so random, that emotions don't come from nowhere, and that you are not here just to work, pay bills, and sleep. To truly wake up is to begin to question, to look at the world like someone staring at a stage and asking, who wrote all this? It's to feel there's a gentle force behind the coincidences, a loving intelligence behind the pain, a hidden purpose behind the chaos. When you start remembering what you lived through in sleep, even just in flashes, you begin to see the invisible while awake. And then people call you too sensitive, mystical, esoteric. But you know something more pulses beneath the surface of matter. And maybe that's the real awakening. Not the one that happens when the alarm goes off, but the one that happens when the soul decides to stay awake even with open eyes. You keep living. You keep working, smiling, drinking coffee, taking the bus. But now, with a new presence, with new eyes, you start to hear the signs, to follow intuition, to feel your path with your chest, not your mind. Because you remember, even if subtly, that nothing here is final, that this life is just another chapter, and that every night you return home, to your real home, the one without walls, without an address, but that vibrates in the exact tone of your spirit. Each night is a crossing, and each morning an invitation to live with more truth, more presence, more listening. The soul speaks all the time, but it only reveals itself when you become quiet. And now you know that. You no longer sleep out of habit. You sleep out of wisdom, with intention, with reverence, because now you understand. Sleep is a return. Dreaming is a remembering. Waking is a choice. And the next time your eyes begin to close, your breath begins to slow, and the world around you disappears, remember, you are about to cross over. Sleep is not just rest. It is return. It is remembrance. It is a journey to the purest part of you. And the next time your eyes begin to close, ask yourself, where does my soul wish to go?